Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are joining us for our online and as well for the people here this morning. So, I'm going to start with a question, show of hands, a little bit of energy. Who here has seen firsthand a school where the learning was disrupted because of lack of clean water, sanitation, or hygiene? Raise your hand. Ah, okay. Raise your hand if, it doesn't matter which country you're coming from, your national education policy explicitly mentions climate resilient WinS services in school. No hands. Okay. And last question with your hands. Who feels confident that their country has a shared definition of what climate resilience means in the school wash context? No hands. I'm curious, do we have hands online? No hands. Great. So I guess some of the just questions that we will be going over will be actually feeling many of the topics that we're talking today on climate resilience wins. So thank you all and welcome once again to the session, working on the interface of WASH in schools and climate adaptation. And my name is Belinda Abraham and I'll be moderating the session today. So we've got here, those are the questions. So we're going to start with in a few minutes, the opening remarks, which will come from Dieter Rothenberger. He is with GIZ. We would be followed then by a presentation by Kitka Goyal, who is UNICEF's regional WASH expert, a specialist. We will have another presentation, a short one, all very exploratory to look at the issues of climate resilience WASH in schools, but by Tom Slaymaker. He is with UNICEF, JMP, and then we will have a series of inputs coming from Splash, coming from WaterAid, coming from Simavi, and Hex Ethiopia, who are online. And this will be then followed by a panel discussion. Hopefully we can squeeze in some interactive questions and answers as well, and we will then close this session. So with that, I am hoping, yes, just in time. I'm pleased. So I am very pleased to introduce the cluster coordinator, the Global Water and Sanitation Programs of GIZ. He is advising the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development on emerging water and climate resilience strategies. And with many years of experience, he has led high-impact programs across the globe, and from utility management to climate finance, water, governance, and public sector participation. Welcome, Dieter, please. A big round of applause for Dieter. Thank you. So welcome, Dieter. And I know we'll just give you a bit of to give us a little bit of, this session is very exploratory as we kind of look at water in schools, WASH in schools, but also we look at the climate resilience and the adaptation. So perhaps some reflections from you on the topic as to sort of set the stage for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Belinda, for the warm welcome, and sorry for being late, but even though with the impressive words you have just given, sometimes we all struggle with the small things, and it's World Water Week, everybody's busy, a lot of meetings. This was also one before, which took longer than expected, and so I was forced to do something which I think my daughter would be very proud of me. I took for the first time a scooter. So, never did this before. So I always take here in Stockholm, I always take e-bikes, because, you know, it's this kind of, I'm not so pro scooter, but there was no e-bike. So I had to take a scooter to be here more or less in time, but still, sorry for the delay.
Just in time.
Yes, so, dear colleagues and friends, partners, we all know climate change is not a distant risk. And it's not a distant risk, in particular for WASH in schools. It is already disrupting services in school, extreme weather, water scarcity, and flooding affect children's ability to access there's wash services in schools, to have safe water, sanitation, and hygiene in these locations. In principle, what we need to achieve to do SDG 4 has not fundamentally changed. It just got more complex. It means also how we deliver wash in schools must really evolve. Climate resilient wash in school is not really inventing something new, but strengthening what we have done before and maybe rethinking some of the things we have done and including some risks through the lens of resilience. And the education sector must be firmly in the lead for that. To do this, I believe three things are essential: a shared understanding, scalable action, and the easiest one is always the intersectoral and government collaboration on this topic. I will go into detail for that. Before that, maybe just some personal reflection also on that topic. I was for about 5 years based in Grenada in the Caribbean and led a climate change adaptation program. And I am a water expert, so I thought, okay, water, climate change, let's see what we can do in the water sector, but also the issue of washing schools, or the climate resilience when it comes to washing schools came up. And actually, I have to say, I was really kind of very positively surprised, because most of the schools on this small island state, they were actually shelters. They were designed as shelters because, of course, now with climate change, these small island states were more and more affected by hurricanes. And so basically these schools, they were in the communities, those areas where people assembled in order to be protected, to be safe if there's a hurricane approaching. And that meant, of course, also, beside the fact that the construction was very solid, there was even generators, backup generators, and so on, even solar power generators. Also the water side, the wash side, was really kind of very considerably done. Not in each and every school, because obviously you need to focus, but in all the communities there was at least one school which could be used as a shelter. And I think this is something where I was really impressed and where we have to get to in the end. So when it comes to shared understanding, I think it's very important that we see, and this was also happening in Grenada, it's not about just doing a pilot project somewhere. It's about really getting jointly an understanding between different stakeholders, education, the people who basically are having the information on climate change, meaning ministries of environment and others, to identify what are the common lines we need to agree on, what is the strategy, and what are principles to do. Because obviously pilot projects, and I love pilot projects, they are great, but that's not what you need to become really climate resilient in a society, in particular for the most vulnerable people, for schools, for children. Scalable action, I think that's really important. We need to institutionalize solutions. Again, pilots are good to learn and to see, but what we need is really that we have existing technologies, rainwater harvesting, water-saving approaches, protocols for heat waves, but this must be really mainstreamed on national level. So that's why I'm really proud also to be working for GIZ, because what we really do is we try to combine the micro-level intervention in schools with the macro-level advice and discussions with the government in order to be able to bridge this gap. Because only working on national level doesn't help, only working on micro level doesn't help. So I think this is really key. And of course we know, and all of you practitioners know as well, working across ministries is not easy. But, thank you. But it is, I think, necessary. We need to bring the different stakeholders in. We need to have the different perspectives in. We need to be able to see the different entry points so that we can really come up with nationally the best solution, which can then also be applied on local level according to the local context. So we need to clarify also responsibilities, who is doing what on national level and who is doing what on local level. So for me, this is where the WinS network comes in. and where I think the Water in Schools network is a platform where actors can connect, can exchange experience, and can learn from each other on different levels, national or local level. So we are very proud and happy to be able to provide this advice and this support for the platform so that we don't have luxury of time. We need to act now, and so we need to speed up our actions also through these platforms. And now I'm looking forward to the discussions in this session. And again, sorry for being late.
No, perfect. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. And I think, Dieter, you've really set the stage for the session objectives, starting with, actually, how do we develop a shared understanding of what climate resilience WASH in schools looks like? And how do we develop strategies that can be sent to scale? And then as you may very well mentioned, strengthening the collaboration between the WASH sector, between education, and the climate stakeholders. So thank you for that. So then with that, we will continue our program and inviting the regional advisor, Kit Goyal. He is a regional advisor for WASH in UNICEF at ISARO, which is the East and Southern African regional office. He has over 25 years extensive experience in the planning, implementation, and monitoring of WASH, environment, and climate resilience programs. As I mentioned, he is based in Nairobi and comes with lots of experience, including a degree from WEDEX, so welcome, Kitka. Big hand of applause.
Thank you very much.
And so you can just press this to
Okay,
forward.
to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for those very kind words of introduction, and good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure, and we're really delighted to have you with us in this session. I am going to give you a very brief presentation on the Climate Resilient WASH in Schools framework, which is what Belinda alluded to, the need for us to have a shared understanding and together move forward in making sure that issues of climate resilience are incorporated into schools and the provision of services there. This framework is intended for all stakeholders. It's not for any one person. And hence, the partnerships that you talked about, the need for all of us to collaborate and be able to then move together. It also helps us to really have the inclusion of these issues of climate resilience WASH into our national adaptation plans, and most importantly, the nationally determined contributions that national governments are working on. How are we going to bring these issues as a priority so that when we want to target climate financing, we'll be able to draw down on it? In most cases, if these issues are not identified in the nationally determined contributions or in the national adaptation plans, the funding does not come through. So we have to find ways of doing it. Now, this framework is one that was developed by the network of partners, but it also is one that is in line with the UNICEF's Climate Resilient WASH framework. And it is divided into it has 9 steps, but divided into 4 quadrants. The first is understanding the problem. And not until we have that solid and a very contextualized understanding of what the problem is, we cannot target the problem and solve it in a way that it's going to be sustainable. So we have to have a clear understanding of what the problem is. We then identify and appraise the options that are available. Once we have been able to do that, Then we go into delivering the solutions. And then naturally move to monitoring and then going around the cycle again. In trying to understand the problem, there is an example from the UNICEF Nigeria country office where they use the climate risk assessment tool on a COBO platform, which is a software platform that I'm sure most of us are aware of, to then understand what the hazards are, what is the level of exposure to those hazards, what are the vulnerabilities in the physical environment, and the capacities to absorb those exposures. And based on that, a risk scoring is done. And then we can take action on how to resolve the problem. Other countries have also started including climate-related questions in their school surveys or their assessment tools. And I think this, again, serves as the entry point for all of us. Let's really make sure that we have this as we undertake our activities. Next is also an example from the UNICEF Middle East and North Africa office. They have developed a compendium of climate and disaster resilient infrastructure and operation measures. Again, it's a holistic approach to the whole thing. Are we looking at things to do with the building and the infrastructure of the schools, the playgrounds, the energy and that is available for school use, water supply, sanitation and drainage, waste management, and the workforce management? How do we incorporate all of these issues as we try to deliver WASH services in schools? In terms of delivering the solutions, we've got an example here where about 6,500 schools were supported with climate-resilient WASH services between 2022 and 2024. And the idea is, again, deliver those solutions based on the problems that were identified. We cannot do that in isolation. We cannot do it in bits and pieces, but look at it holistically. And if we're able to do that, then I'm sure we'll be able to really identify, come up with solutions that are sustainable and are climate resilient. We need to move and keep improving what we're doing. And that we can only do through monitoring what we have done. And I'm delighted to note that we have Tom with us from the Joint Monitoring Program, and they are looking at those indicators that will help us measure how we are really delivering on this very important topic of climate-resilient WASH services in schools. Again, we will hear more from Tom regarding this, and we will then be able to have a bigger understanding of how we can move together as a network, engaging all the relevant stakeholders so that we can deliver services that are climate resilient, that are sustainable, and will be of benefit to our learners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, come on, some energy! So, Kitka, now we can, the framework is now online. It's available online.
Nearly.
Nearly. When will it be available?
By September.
By September.
So in a couple of days' time.
Yeah.
It's been signed off at the moment, and it will be available for everyone to access and make use of.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
we will catch you back later on during the panel. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now, talking about monitoring. He's been talking about monitoring all week from the center stage in the beginning of the start of the conference to the last day. He's talking monitoring. It is Tom Slaymaker. He's the chief of many data units, including the WASH unit, the climate and the environment. He works based in UNICEF headquarters, many years of experience as well in the sector, and he also co-leads and works with the JMP, which we all know is the Joint Monitoring Program. So welcome, Tom Slaymaker. Thank you. Big hand of applause.
Okay, thank you very much, Belinda, for that kind introduction and for the invitation to join this session. I'd like to pick up where Kitka left off with the framework. So I think you know JMP is producing updates every 2 years. We've just released an update on Washington households this week, talking about that later today. Our last update on Washington schools was last year, and we're going to start working on another one for 2026. And we now have data for a relatively large number of countries. So for the last 10 years or so, we've been benchmarking and comparing progress on Washington schools, and we now have estimates for 140 countries, which is fantastic. But what we want to talk about now is where do we go next? And I'm going to zoom in to this quadrant on the lower left-hand side here about monitoring and moving forward. Kitka mentioned the fact that there's a huge amount of work going on already in this space. Many agencies and partners are already working on it at the operational level. But the job for the WHO, UNICEF, JMP is to figure out what might those metrics look like at a national level and at a global level so that we can track change over time. So as you know, we have our standard JMP ladders for Washington schools. And at the start of the SDG period, this is back in 2016, when we were looking at this, we were trying to figure out what are the service levels that we think almost all countries will be able to report on by the end of the SDG period. So we've been focusing on this universal access to a basic level of drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene in schools. But even at that time, we had this concept of advanced service levels, and there are a range of different additional criteria that we have at the top here, which we recognized at the time were going to be important, but we didn't think were feasible in terms of measurement and monitoring at a national and global level. And in the JMP progress updates, what we tend to do is we focus on those. So one question is, do we want to move towards a sort of higher level of service, which we might call safely managed in schools, a bit like we have in households? Do we want to move and focus on inclusive WASH in schools? Do we want to look at climate resilient WASH in schools? There are a number of different things that could go into this top category. But here, as we stand today, it's clear that climate resilience is a high priority within the sector and amongst the different partners who work on Washington schools. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is we need to think about what the parties and the member states are asking us to do. And you may be aware that we now have this global goal on adaptation, which has these targets for adaptation and resilience. And first among those is this target 9A, which is about water and sanitation. So that provides us with a very useful hook. This is all of the parties to the UNFCCC convention agreeing on the need to significantly reduce climate-induced water scarcity, enhance climate resilience to water-related hazards, and to move towards climate-resilient water supply, sanitation, and a safe and affordable potable water for all. So that provides us with a hook for Washington schools as well as households. One of the big things that's missing from this framework is a target on education. And people who work on education are concerned about this because we know that education is important for climate adaptation. But it's also worth pointing out that we do have a target E, which is about resilient infrastructure. And there, again, there's an opportunity for us to examine the targets and the indicators that are being proposed there and make sure that they're including indicators for schools. So how do we approach this? The JMP, together with the GLASS, which is the sister program of UN Water, which focuses more on the inputs and the policies and the processes, whereas the JMP focuses more on the outputs and the outcomes. Together, the JMP and the GLASS are doing a joint review of potential indicators for monitoring climate resilient WASH. This has been going on for some time, looking at all of the different frameworks that are out there, all of the different data collection tools that you've all been developing, and some of the emerging indicators. And we're trying to identify what could be the focus of future monitoring efforts by both JMP and GLAS. We have a technical working group, and I think some members of that technical working group are here or are online. And they are feeding into the review and providing feedback on the outputs. And this review is supported by a group of academic institutions who've been leading a lot of the rigorous interrogation of both the academic concepts, but also the evidence that supports the inclusion of different indicators. And you can find all of those outputs online. But what I wanted to do, because this is a very complex topic, is just to highlight some of the major buckets within the conceptual framework where we imagine we would need to have some indicators for monitoring climate resilience. So on the one hand, on the left-hand side, we have adaptation actions that might be taken by government at the national level, at the policy level, which are going to influence what happens in terms of washing schools. On the other, we need some adaptation actions that might be taken by service providers, which would include schools or local authorities, and by the users themselves. The third major bucket is the attributes of the water and sanitation infrastructure in schools. And then we have, as a result of these actions that are taken and the attributes of the infrastructure, we have a bucket which is around, are the services still functioning? And the last one is around the user experience of those services. So the review is looking at all of these, but these are starting to emerge as the major pillars of the framework, and we're trying to populate those now with potential indicators that could be taken forward. So this is our timeline. The review's been going on for some time. I know many of you have fed into it. And there's a long list of indicators that have been identified back at the beginning of this year. And we're now in a process of trying to develop a shortlist, which we hope will be available for more public consultation in October. And what we'll be looking to do then is to take that shortlist and identify countries that are interested to integrate them into national monitoring systems, pilot them, and further refinement, so that we can start to collect them at scale and integrate them into the global monitoring framework. At the start of this year, the JMP is also starting a review of advanced monitoring of washing schools. It's not limited to climate resilience. It's going to look at the full spectrum of potential advanced indicators. And it's going to use this review of climate resilient wash as its starting point. Some of the indicators that we're using in households and in healthcare facilities could also apply in schools, but we need to think very carefully about how and why the indicators for schools need to be different. And so we really want to hear from you on that. If you have additional frameworks and data collection tools that are not captured in the review that has been going on over the last 18 months, then we really want to hear from you. Please do send those to us and watch this space, as we will be starting to put out recommendations on how the JMP will be moving forward in future. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom, for helping us kind of put things together. The first part of the session, as I mentioned, has been very much exploratory, because we've been talking about a framework which is yet to be launched and it's still under development. We've also been talking about what are the possible monitoring indicators. So very much the exploratory. The next part of our session now will focus on what is actually happening now in various countries, when most of our inputs are coming from Africa, but what is actually happening now? So to maybe help us set the first video, perhaps I can invite Chris to tell us a little bit. Chris is the Social Impact Manager and Strategist with Splash. It is, or you can correct your title.
It's fine.
You are now.
Yeah. I'm Chris Nicoletti. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Splash. Our video summarizes our discussions with government about climate resilient wash, what the priorities are, what the challenges are, and ultimately how Splash is thinking about addressing those in 3 new countries, 8 new cities for about 1 million kids. And it's given by Carol Wanjao, our Executive Director of Splash Africa.
Yeah, perfect. So roll the video, please. It was just on. Okay. We'll get the video back on here. Okay. So do you want to perhaps, Chris, you want to set out a little bit about the context of which Splash is working? I think in the video, Carol talks a little bit about both the work you're doing in Zambia and in Malawi. So do you want to maybe share a little bit context as we get the video up?
So Splash is Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Splash is embarking on phase 2 of what we call Project WISE. We are closely working with governments to implement a comprehensive wash in schools program in 100% of schools in 8 major cities in Zambia, Malawi, and Tanzania. And as such, we do a lot of coordination with governments. We seek to find co-investment from governments, and we also are working kind of on the cutting edge of program design and implementation. So assembling partnerships, aligning with government policy, and funding this at massive scale is part of the challenge, a big challenge, but also a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah.
Are we good? I can say more. Do I need to buy more time?
Yeah. No, we are good, and I think we will even hear more details. So
Okay.
play the video. Thank you.
Carol, good job.
Yeah, Carol. We'll hear more from Carol.
I am Carol Wanjao, and I'm really excited to share this message with you. At Splash, as most of you may know, we focus on bringing safe water, sanitation, and hygiene into schools, because schools are where children spend a third of their day. And these schools are the launchpads for lasting change across whole communities. When we look at Zambia and Malawi, the needs are clear. In Zambia, the government has a strong wash in school guidelines and a national strategy with very clear targets. Every school should have safe drinking water, gender-segregated toilets that are accessible to children with disabilities, and hand washing stations with soap. Very impressive. In Malawi, similar commitments exist under the School Health and Nutrition Guidelines, often called and known as SHE. But here is where the reality in both countries face real trade-offs. Zambia's free education for all has doubled enrollment, overwhelming school infrastructure. Malawi is grappling with recurring cholera outbreaks and widespread poverty. For both governments, and all governments actually, decisions often come down to whether to fund more classrooms, recruit more teachers, or expand wash services, all of which are essential. And the climate change is raising the stakes. Droughts in Zambia are drying boreholes fast. Floods in Malawi are fueling cholera outbreaks and destroying sanitation facilities. The policies for climate resilience and policies for school wash often live very separately across very different ministries, which include water, education, local government, and health. Coordinating these policies into one integrated response is a real challenge that we all face together. That's why Splash's priorities are the same as our government partners' priorities, and we consider governments our major partner. And through Project WISE Phase 2, we are working hand in hand with ministries, utilities, and local implementing partners to identify trade-offs, set urgency, and move to action. So, what does this mean for the way forward? At Splash, working alongside governments, we see 5 urgent priorities. 1, infrastructure and climate resilience. Schools need climate-proof water systems, deeper boreholes, piped connections, water storage, and renewable energy sources like solar-powered pumps. Toilets and septic tanks must be designed to withstand both floods and droughts. The second is menstrual health and hygiene. Programs must continue to evolve to social environments that young women and girls are part of and influenced by, and facilities must include safe disposal systems, private changing spaces, affordable supplies so that girls can continue to learn with dignity and stop missing days of school. The third is operation maintenance and financing. School grants in Zambia and Malawi cover only routine costs, not major repairs which are necessary. We need ring-fenced O&M funds and affordable wash technicians linked to schools, as well as long-term investments made to improve service delivery by local utilities. The fourth is system strengthening. Governments have policies, which is wonderful, but implementation is where the lag happens. We need stronger data systems, accountability, and integration of climate adaptation into WASH in schools, monitoring and standards, as well as replicable performance-based models for O&M. The fifth is partnerships and behavior change. Cholera outbreaks remind us, all of us, that infrastructure alone is not enough. Coordinated campaigns across ministries, NGOs, and communities can reinforce climate-smart hygiene practices. The truth is, governments rarely spell out climate resilience WASH in schools in one document. Instead, they all live in separate documents, and it's about weaving all of this together: education, water, sanitation, health, and climate policies into a single response. That coordination challenge is what makes this work so complex and so important as well. And in the next 5 years, Splash intends to improve the WASH social and built environments in 100% of the government-funded urban schools in Lusaka, Kitwe, and Dola, and in Malawi, in Blantyre and Lilongwe cities. These challenges are significant. We are excited about it. And climate shocks are becoming more disruptive, which is why we must move fast. It's imperative that we take necessary action now to increase the adaptive capacities of our schools. For us at Splash, the vision is simple. Every child, every day, in every school should have safe water and climate-resilient WASH services, because when we climate-proof schools, we are helping climate-proof futures. And I thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing about all the deliberations from the World Water Week. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. And Carol really says it. When we climate-proof a school, we climate-proof a future. And I really love that. Something as I was watching the video, and it's going to be a question I planned to share with the panel later on, but I want to share it with everybody here too, so you can have some reflections as you're watching the next few inputs. And the question is, does achieving climate resilient WASH in schools require a completely new approach? Or are we just strengthening and adapting what we already do in WinS? So just think about that question as you're seeing the next few presentations as well. So with that, I'd love to invite the next speaker input to give a little bit of a context to what we're about to see. Carol did also mention that infrastructure alone is not enough. We also need the behavior change. So now we're going to focus a little bit by Dr. Om Prasad Gautam. He is a behavior change specialist. He works with WaterAid, with over 23 years of experience in the sector. He's not only working in WASH, but also child health, immunization, food safety, disease surveillance, and he worked even in HIV/AIDS programs. He is currently the senior WASH manager at hygiene at WaterAid UK, and he leads the behavior change initiatives in Africa and Asia. So glad to have you here, and maybe set us up what we're about to see.
Thank you very much, Belinda. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So, WaterAid is an international charity working across many countries in Asia and Africa. Through our WAS in School work, we have been actively modeling climate-resilient WAS services and hygiene behavior change program in many countries. The video that I'm going to show will reflect our collective work in partnership with the Ministry of National Education in Madagascar, where we have model climate-resilient WAS services, especially hygiene behavior change program, and assess its effects through cluster randomized trial. So in video, you will see how trial was implemented and what the government had to say when it comes to scaling up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Roll the video. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This video highlights the results of cluster randomized trial focusing on climate resilient wash services and hygiene behavior change intervention among school students in Madagascar, implemented by WaterAid in collaboration with Ministry of National Education, funded by JICA. Cluster randomized trial before and after with control aim to improve access to climate resilient inclusive wash services and sustain hygiene behaviors in 30 schools, 15 intervention, 15 control. It was a sequential trial. At the beginning of the trial, climate resilient wash services were standardized all across 30 schools. Then light cognitive hygiene intervention was implemented only in 15 intervention schools. Then finally, comprehensive hygiene behavior change intervention was implemented in all 30 schools, 15 control and 15 intervention schools. The effect of the trial was assessed using a cluster randomized before and after with control design. During baseline, RCT follow-up, RCT inline. Behavior center design approach was used to design and implement this trial, and the implementation was done in 3-phase modalities. During first phase, climate resilient wash infrastructure were installed all 30 schools. That includes diverse source of water, including rainwater harvesting, elevated tank, water treatment options, gender separated inclusive toilet with raised platforms, sill pit latrines, water directly connected with the toilets, elevated waste collecting container with burning chambers, installation of group hand washing facilities at the entrance and closer to the toilet were installed in order to ensure the resilient service in all schools. During second phase, light cognitive focus hygiene intervention was implemented in 15 schools. That includes manga cartoon taught by teachers within 3 months using 6 classroom exposures. During third phase, comprehensive hygiene behavior change was implemented in all 30 schools, again with 3 months with 6 exposures. The comprehensive intervention includes more engaging, attractive motivational activities, placement of static and mobile nodes to prompt the behavior in specific locations, and also social norms related activities including public commitments, public rewards, and group hand washing among school students in schools. Trial assess hand washing as a primary outcome. After installation of resilient hand washing facilities, school students washing their hands during various critical moments were 5 to 18%. Addition of cognitive light hygiene intervention has no effect. Comprehensive hygiene behavior change intervention has a significant effect in sustaining hand washing practices among school students at various critical moments. This trial concludes that participatory creative process based on climate resilient focus formative research help designing infrastructure and evidence-based hygiene intervention which can ensure context-relevant emotional hygiene package. Higher reach, higher frequency of exposure and fatality ensure sustainability. Resilient wash services act as a precondition and facilitate behavior change. Cognitive light intervention doesn't add any additional effect. Finally, comprehensive hygiene behavior change intervention, including emotional promotion, nudge, together with precondition implemented by capacitated teacher with high level of exposures, sustain behavioral outcomes, and can be considered as a proof of concept climate resilient wash and hygiene intervention. After the successful trial, this is what the government had to say about sustainability
the
scaling up.
Chief of Health and School Feeding Service at the Ministry of National Education. So the Ministry of National Education of Madagascar, through the Health and School Feeding Service, has worked with WaterAid to design and test climate resilient wash services and hygiene behavior change intervention in 30 schools. The intervention was designed to be tested to assess its effect and to create a replicable model. This intervention trial created a proof of concept intervention both for climate resilient infrastructure and effective hygiene behavior change packages. We have jointly developed and endorsed hygiene promotion handbook for schools, and this will serve as basis from the Ministry of National Education to replicate this model in other schools in the region. This intervention sets a standard to operationalize our WASH in school guideline using learning and insights from this. We will scale up proof of concept, hygiene intervention, and resilient WASH services in the other schools. Thank you.
So thank you. So here we see how the trial led to a development of a program. So and we will talk a little bit more about how that program, how the development of the random controlled trial led to the proof of concept and for the intervention for this climate resilient program. So before we go into the next video and to queue up, perhaps maybe we can go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, okay, good. I'm just going to take a little bit of a breather from the videos. So we saw a video 1 and video 2. The video 1 we saw, Carol was explaining how government partners have already identified priorities in Zambia and Malawi and how Splash is working to support those priorities. We also saw just last from Dr. Ullman and the team how the evidence of the impact of climate resilience WASH in schools. So couple questions just for you for your reflection. When you think about your country, whether it's the country you come from or the country you're working in, do you think your country also has some of the similar policy challenges or priority challenges that we saw in Malawi and Zambia? If you do, raise your hand. Similar challenges to? No? People see very different challenges. Okay. Interesting. Who believes then that the gap between policy intent, so all the things that we're talking about, the framework and the policies, it really, and on the ground results, what's actually happening on the ground is actually the biggest barrier? Does anybody? Yeah. So this is probably one of the areas we should focus on. Very good. Okay. So with that then, thank you. So you haven't fallen asleep yet. I'm just joking. With that, I would like to invite Sandra von Zulan to explain to us a little bit about what Simavi is doing. She is the program manager for human rights to water and sanitation. She's been working on WinS as a project lead for WASH, and she's going to talk a little bit about the Learn and Share project. She has many years also experience working in the WASH sector with a thematic focus, which is very key, leave no one behind. And now more and more, Sandra, she's focusing on climate resilient WASH. So set us up in that video, please.
Thank you, Belinda. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Very happy to be here and share what we're doing within the WASH, Learn and Share project. It's a project that we as Simavi are implementing in Uganda, and we work with schools as entry point to also work with communities, local government and WASH entrepreneurs. And we see schools as an enabler to sustainable WASH services. We have a short video where we will zoom in one of the districts that we are working in. It's Bunyangabo district in the western part of Uganda. And there we are working with a local partner, Jesse, on this project. And in the video, we have Mr. Sanyu Robert. He's the district education officer of Bunyangabo district. And he will share how we as the WASH Learn and Share project are working with the district to improve climate resilient WASH in schools. He will share challenges in the district, but also practical solutions. So enjoy watching the video.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Sanyu Robert. and I'm working as the district education officer at the Nyangabo district local government. Within Nyangabo district, we have 61 primary schools. Smavi and Jesse are implementing Wash, Learn, and Share project within the Nyangabo district in 9 primary schools. This project gives the district the opportunity to improve the wash situation in these 9 schools and their surrounding communities. The project has a component around climate resilience. Schools in Nyangabo district are facing challenges concerning the availability of sustainable wash facilities. Only 11% of the schools are having rainwater harvesting tanks, which is recommended drinking water technology in schools. At the same time, 91% of schools is having people stance ratio, which is higher than the recommended ratio of 40 peoples per latrine stance. Climate change effects are having a negative impact on the sustainability of the wash facilities. Key challenges for Nyangabo district to integrate climate resilience into education system are limited knowledge on climate scenarios and impact within the district, limited knowledge on climate resilience technologies that fit with the geographical and climatic conditions of the district. As a district, we have been supporting the Wash, Learn, and Share project to plant trees, to control wind, and provide shades, plant grass to control soil erosion, constructed additional latrine stances to reduce pupil latrine stance ratio. And we have supported Wash Angels clubs to sensitize communities on environment conservation. Within the Wash, Learn, and Share projects, there is attention for capacity building of pupils, teachers, leaders, and communities around climate change and climate resilience. This focused around the 3 R's approach: adaptive planning, water safety planning. Furthermore, schools are developing a cost recovery plan, which is a full system to plan, finance, and sustain wash in schools. Cost recovery planning includes assessment and mitigation risks, which include climate risks. And the mitigation measures that have been successfully implemented include tree planting on school compounds, which improve the availability of shade and can also be a source of revenue for schools. Lastly, the project is promoting climate resilience infrastructure in schools, such as drainable VIP latrines with an incinerator and rain harvesting tanks.
Go back to the PowerPoint. Great. So again, we start to see more about what are potential scalable models that we can actually implement in a climate resilient wash in schools program. So the next and last of the inputs comes from Ethiopia, and it's with Tigist Gebre Medinhin. And she is a specialist working with HEX, as I mentioned, in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. She is and HEX is under the Swiss Water Consortium Partnership, and where she advises for the region and has recently started, or is a WASH unit manager. And she brings rich experiences to the program. Now, I'm hoping, Tigist, that you can hear us. Yay! And we can see you. We wish you were here with us. And I think the one thing I do like about the presentation is, even though with all the cuts in funding, and we can't bring people to the conference, we can definitely hear their voices, so their voices are not lost. So Tigist, welcome. A big hand of applause to you. And Tigist,
thank you so much.
Yeah, could you set us up and tell us what we're about to see in the video?
Yes, Belinda, thank you. Good morning, all, and I'm happy to share our climate resilient work in our WASH in School program. This project is supported by the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, as Belinda said. The Cities Water and Sanitation Consortium is supporting WASH projects in East and South Africa and also Francophone Africa. So to start with, in my country, we are facing growing threats from floods, droughts, and other climatic hazards that are damaging WASH facilities and disrupting children learning. So in the upcoming video, we will see how system actors from education, water, health, disaster risk management, and meteorology came together and conducted a climate resilient analysis across climatic zones. I believe this regional model demonstrates how coordinated evidence-based action can shift WASH programming from reactive to proactive, embedding resilience into schools, and it offers also a replicable model. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tigges. And in Tigges' case, I must say, it wasn't because of finances, it was more around visa. So I want to clarify that. But for many people, that's the case. So just to clarify. So if we can put on the video that Tigges has set up, and Tigges will have you later on for the panel, okay? So just hang on. Thank you. So the video number 4, please.
Schools in our region lack the data and analysis on the specific climate risks threatening our WASH infrastructures. Without such information, it's nearly impossible to prioritize investments or design interventions that effectively address local climate vulnerabilities. This has resulted in a reactive rather than proactive approach, where infrastructures were built or repaired without considering long-term climatic stressors.
Recognizing this, the system actors in the South Ethiopia region collaborated to develop a framework for CR WASH system by climate zones. This allows school WASH construction and rehabilitation projects to be tailored to local climate or environmental conditions. By doing so, they ensure that the investment made in school WASH are sustainable, effective, and climate resilient.
Swiss Church Aid Hexaper, with the support from Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, is implementing a community, school, and health care facility WASH improvement project in 3 zones of South Ethiopia region since 2023. Through this project, HEX facilitated a process in which the government systems and actors, including education, water and energy, health and disaster risk and management, and meteorology at regional, zonal and district level, led the process to define and agree on a climate resilience actions in schools in the region.
In our region, southern Ethiopia, climate extremes are putting school WASH system at risk. Prolonged droughts trap water tanks, leaving students without safe drinking water, while flood inundate latrine and classrooms, spreading disease and closing schools. Recognizing the climate challenge, our region undertook a comprehensive climate resilience analysis focusing on school WASH infrastructure. During the process, we categorized our region into 3 climatic zones and mapped out the common climate hazards for each zones, which are flooding and heavy rainfall, droughts, and landslides. Next, we analyzed how each component of the school WASH system is exposed to the identified hazards. We then examined the likely impacts of each hazard on WASH infrastructure functionality. This included estimating potential service disruption, health implication, and infrastructure damage. The collaborative process allowed us to develop climate-informed WASH design standards that are tailored to the specific needs of our region.
The initiative was designed not as a one-off action, but a system strengthening intervention that builds institutional capacity, informs standards, and enhances long-term service sustainability. The comprehensive climate resilience analysis of school WASH infrastructure builds an evidence for decision-making, improved coordination among actors, informed resilient infrastructure standards, established framework for risk, informed planning and monitoring, and developed local technical capacity. The government engagement in the southern Ethiopia region offers a replicable model for other regions, and it is a reminder that the climate-informed action in the school level is essential.
So many of you saw probably it was dubbed. They were speaking in Amharic, and it was dubbed for the translation. So quickly, we will be the next session. I would like to invite the panelists here, everybody who presented, including Tom. Kit, you wait for us. You're going to be called out later, so please come here. Make yourselves. And then Tigges is online. But I'm just going to quickly, just a few shout outs. What are some of the impressions you've got on the video? One word shout outs. Any sort of thoughts? No? No shout outs. No sort of, was it impressive? Worrying? Any sort of reactions? Good. So you're good. So we get good.
Evidence-based.
A lot of evidence-based. Very good. Okay. So thank you very much. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion, and we hope that also there's going to be a bit of time for questions. So I'm going to start with you, Tom, but then I want everybody to quick round robin on this one. Tom, when you were in the center stage on Monday, and you had one of the things, you said many things, but one of the things you did say is it about that we're doing something transformative and something new, or is it just doing what we're doing a bit better? What are your reflections on that? It's the same question I asked earlier.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And if we sit in a room and we start to talk about, climate resilience, it's very clear that very quickly different people have a different understanding of what we mean. So we've had some great examples here of the type of work that's already going on. And some of that is about just going much deeper and doing the same things to a higher standard, or doing them more comprehensively. Not just hand washing facilities, but behavior change. Not just, having water in the school, but getting deeper boreholes to make sure that it doesn't dry up, or building defences to ensure that, the existing services are resilient. But we also need to think that in many cases that will not be sufficient. Mm-hmm. And we are all aware of examples where this kind of incremental change is simply not going to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. We have schools that have to shut down, schools that have to be relocated, and so we're starting to have a completely different approach to education. And so we have to remember that there's a spectrum here. Mm-hmm. But the other one that I want to throw in, because the others might want to react to this, is that there are two main types of climate change that we're talking about, and we've seen both of them addressed in the presentation. One is the sort of rapid onset, big disasters, the enormous events, the floods, the storms that destroy infrastructure or shut schools. But the other, which actually affects many more schools, is the kind of slow onset changes. Things like, gradual increase in heat waves, extreme temperatures. And so our responses to those two things also have to be quite different. So those are the things that I think we need to weave into the discussion.
Great, thank you for that. Sandra, quick reflections on that too. Same question.
Well, I think doing something completely new will only add burden to the already existing monitoring systems in schools. So I think it would be good to integrate it into existing systems and monitoring frameworks. But I think the crucial part is to have enough knowledge on climate change and what it means in different contexts and how schools can actually work on that. Because I think we don't know enough, and that makes it difficult to decide on the right solutions, because every context is different.
Right. Dr. Ohm, your reflections quickly.
Thank you very much. I think in 2 words, what we need is the evolution rather than revolution. So we need to strengthen what we're currently doing. We need to be ready in terms of integrating climate resilient to WAS and behavior change into existing WAS programming. What does that mean in reality? Anyway, many of the actors, before we design the infrastructure, we do assessment. We need to incorporate resilient, understanding the climate-related hazard, potential threats, coping mechanisms that are already in existence, what are the people's behavioral determinants, what the people understand, links their disease vulnerability, climate vulnerability with the climate-related threats and so forth. I mean, anyway, we're doing assessment. Can we deep dive into this design process? We are anyway moving towards making it inclusive. Can we make it climate resilient? Of course, we need to be ready in terms of putting a little more financing and also bringing a skill set that what others are also saying it, because climate designing those infrastructure, the behavior change program sensitive to climate does require additional capacity. So we should be ready in our investment in terms of bringing a little bit of extra money, but at the same time, a skill set and ready to transform the way we are currently implementing rather than revolutionizing everything. And we need to be also cognizant that the financing into the sector is shrinking, and then how do we actually better into the existing work is a massive undertaking for us rather than going extremely new. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, some reflections.
I think it's improving on what we're already doing. And I'll give like a quick example. I just got a notification this morning that my daughter's school in Colorado, in the United States, kids have to leave early because there's no air conditioning in the schools.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it in America as climate resilient educational services. It's providing education to our kids. And so I think if we think about it simply of we have to adapt to climate, we have to respond, we have to improve our services, and I think some of the jargon can get confusing for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see it also where I'm living in Germany. Oftentimes schools are closed because it's too hot. And they've even got to, the kids call it heat-free days. they celebrate it, but as parents in school, we are concerned. Tigis, quickly, what is your reaction? Do we need to do something new, transformative, or is it about doing what we already do better? New or better?
I think climate resilient washing school doesn't necessarily require a completely new approach, but rather strengthening and adapting adaptation of existing WinS framework and practices. What we have, our existing foundations in WinS are strong. Many WinS programs already promote safe water, sanitation, and hygiene behaviors. This can be leveraged and can be scaled to address climate-related risks. So climate risk can be integrated or built into current systems through using climate-smart infrastructures and enhancing emergency preparedness for climate shocks. So I believe that it's not like a new thing that should be implemented. It has to be integrated into existing, our WASH systems. That's my view.
Oh, thank you, Tigis. But Tigis, I'm just going to keep you on since we still get you online, and maybe, what would you see, I mean, thinking about Ethiopia, the best examples that you've seen on WASH climate, with climate actors working together to really scale up interventions? Can you speak a little bit to that briefly? Your experiences on stakeholders working together.
Thank you, Belinda. Yes, I can speak to that. So in Ethiopia, in my country, Ethiopia, the best example of WASH actors working together to scale up interventions is the One WASH National Program. This One WASH National Program, it was launched in 2013 by the government of Ethiopia with a broad vision of
I think hopefully we get her back. So I was worried we're going to lose her. Perhaps.
National program has a climate resilient WASH, and it recognizes that Ethiopia is vulnerable to climate shocks.
Okay. Okay, so unfortunately it seems like... Yes, go ahead, Tigis. Yeah, we're losing you here. Can you, so yes, the One WASH program, can you quickly go through, we keep losing you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of collaboration and working together, the program is being led by 4 ministries, the Ministry of Water and Energy, who is responsible for the infrastructure parts of, WASH. There is also this Ministry of Health, who's doing the hygiene and sanitation in health facilities and washing health facilities. The other ministry that's included in this program is the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education is also responsible for
Okay.
Ministry of
Okay, thank you, Tigist. Unfortunately, we're having a bit of technical problems, but thank you very much for sharing. We'll hopefully try to summarize those points for you. Sorry, I apologize. So maybe we can go to Sandra. We've talked about a little bit of the absorptive capacity. I think you kind of alluded to it with your response. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think it's indeed building up what I already mentioned, that I think it's important to embed climate resilience into existing school and education systems. Also not to overwhelm and to add additional pressure to the schools and the local government. And in our project, we focus on 3 practical strategies. So the first one is to integrate WASH or climate resilient WASH into routine school planning and budgeting. And so we're working with the government and with the schools also on the UNICEF 3-star approach, so that schools and governments know what kind of WASH facilities are needed. And then we also work with the schools on the cost recovery plan, which was also mentioned in the video by Mr. Sanyu Robert. And that is a tool where that schools can use to plan for operation and maintenance and hopefully even full cost recovery of their WASH facilities. And that makes them also more active agents of their facilities. And it doesn't really then become extra work, but really part of their daily routine. And then secondly, we work on strengthening capacity and also peer-to-peer training. And here we target all relevant stakeholders in the school framework. So not only the head teacher and the teacher, but we also work with school management committee, the local government, the parent-teacher association, and the students themselves. So I really see which stakeholder is playing which role and where do climate resilient WASH fall in. So we don't put it on one stakeholder. And then the last one is also leveraging partnerships and working with student-led initiatives. So we see that students can also play a key role in climate resilient WASH. They can be the ambassadors in the school, they can inspire other pupils, but also their communities. And then we also work with entrepreneurs to make sure they provide the right services. So that's how we are trying to make a holistic approach, but really embed climate resilient WASH into the daily routines of the schools.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. I'm going to go to you, and I was trying to think of, okay, what would be the good question for Splash? Because we started with the priorities and how the program is based on the priorities. But there's priorities is one thing, but there's also costing and financing. So when the priorities are established or agreed, what are some of the ways that you actually can look at it in a cost-effective way, or even deal with some of the financing challenges? Because, so maybe you can speak a little bit to those elements in your program?
Yeah. So what we've learned, having worked in 100% of government schools in Addis, is that this is kind of a through-line theme of this session, is the intersection of scale and policy and implementation. I think Splash realizes and has learned that you have to operate at a certain scale to attract a certain level of government co-investment.
Okay.
So when we can commit to an entire city with philanthropic funding to help that, governments are more inspired, motivated to co-invest. And we see that both in the form of CapEx investment, like building toilets, but also in the form of longer-term OpEx or operations and maintenance funding. So there is some tipping point that in order to drum up political interest, in order to shift the expectations of their constituents, we do need to hit a certain level of scale. And so we take that approach into new places as well. So I think when we think about cost effectiveness, it's at the school level, it's at the student level, but it's also at the entire kind of city level. So that we can try to attract both philanthropic funding to subsidize the project, which I think we all are doing to a certain extent. And all of us are here because of that to a certain extent, but also to what we, kind of the golden egg of getting co-investment from our government partners.
Absolutely, and I can imagine when the scale is big, it attracts by its nature, and then that in itself can leverage.
Kind of helps to perpetuate eventual replicability or sustainability.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. Dr. we have seen here, I guess you shared the random control trials, and there was a lot, and I know in a short amount of time, but based on the trial outcomes, what would you think are really the most critical factors? There were many factors, but when you're looking at it, what are the most critical factors for climate resilient wash services and the hygiene behavior change interventions for really to be effective in a school setting?
Sure. Thank you very much. I think what we have seen into the video is how we sequentially model the climate resilient wash facilities, followed it by light intervention, because often people think that, oh, light posters, leaflets, manga cartoon type intervention can work if there is facilities. Mm-hmm. But then we're cognizant that the cognitive type of intervention doesn't work. Therefore, the third part of the trial was to introduce a comprehensive intervention. It was implemented all sequential, and there was a control group to control the environment. So four key factors that led for successful execution of the trial and how that sustained the behavior. The first what we have witnessed is any climate resilient intervention has to be more evidence-based, participatory. We have to follow the participatory design. So what we have done at the beginning, we have done the formative research. We really understand the climate-related vulnerabilities, understand the coping mechanism, understand behavioral determinants, and gone through a creative process to design infrastructure, context relevant, and responding to the climate threat, by the way. So I mean, there are, as Tom was earlier mentioning, we need to be very much contextually relevant to that context. So be cognizant about the climate-related vulnerability, the contextual design, and robust behavior change campaign linked with people emotions. That is one, with the participatory design. The second, so our trial shows that irrespective whether you have the climate resilient infrastructure in place, look at the outcome of the trial. Only 10% of students were consistently washing hands with soap in 3 critical moments. So that means though infrastructure acts as a precondition to facilitate the behavior, but it doesn't lead to sustained behavior change outcome. So what we have then added was the comprehensive behavior change intervention with emotional activities, nudge and prompt that prompt the behavior. Those are reactive to the settings where behavior need to happen, and the social norms related, because in a school settings you are with your peers. It has to be like, the socially driven activities. So our campaign was more robust enough to have that comprehensive elements. Yeah. The second is all about infrastructure plus behavior change campaign together. Third, what we have witnessed is, look, as a WAS sector, do we really want to be a contractor to the education sector? Not. We really want education sector to drive this. So what we have modeled in this particular one, water technically supported, but the Ministry of Ministry of Education themselves implemented this. We have built the capacity of the teachers, we have built the capacity of the local, the contractors through the Ministry of Education, and they implemented themselves. We built the capacity. So whole hygiene sessions were run by the trained teachers, maintaining a high level of fidelity because the package was consistent and with high level reach. So that we have frequently exposed students multiple times, repeated times, 6 times. Third is high level of exposures, reach, maintaining high fidelity, but through the government-led system. Yeah. Fourth, which is a final, the high level of government commitment and participation is important. There is a need for capacitated institutional body. The school, the climate-related aspects were actually trained to every individual's linked with school institutional settings, whether this is a school management committee, child clubs, school teachers, everyone. And we have established a very strong operation and maintenance plan. We train the operators in the schools, including the water quality assessment, also understanding how the disease prevalence is happening. We have seen some schools were becoming epicenter in terms of transmitting disease before the trial, and we really wanted to make that environment more agile, so that the capacitated teachers themselves, with the very strong school management committee, with the child club as a watchdog, can monitor these activity and sustain over time. And you have seen the government commitment because it was tested as a proof of concept. Just wanted to see what kind of comprehensive behavior change intervention has to go alongside the infrastructure. And then because now we are discarding, we know that the cognitive type doesn't work, so we excluded it, and we have developed now the handbook that will be replicated under the school WAS guideline in Madagascar in other schools.
Thank you very, very much. And Tom, now to you. Dr. Ohm has just gone through 4 sort of key factors, critical factors he's seen, and within those 4 factors, many sub-factors. But when we're looking at actually, what would you say are the data and monitoring that is critical for scaling up? What would you say are these most feasible and indicators that we could actually potentially use. So, so what I'm trying to ask here is, when we're trying to identify indicators to enhance national and global monitoring of climate resilient winds, which indicators do you see are very relevant and feasible to measure for the education sector that could potentially drive to scale? And I was also preluding this to what Dr. Ohm had mentioned, many things, but I would like you to sort of hone in on what you would say are some critical ones. Thank you.
Well, I think what all panel members are agreeing on is that context really matters. And so, you need to have a lot of things in place to understand context in order to be able to respond to that context. But the challenge for a national government, which is trying to collect information on a small number of things, which are going to signal whether the situation is getting better or worse, which is the same challenge that the JMP has, is that you have to radically simplify the numbers of pieces of information that you're going to collect to track progress. And I totally agree with Sandra. A lot of this is about capacity. And even getting some very basic information for every single school in the country is still a challenge. We know this. So I think it's going to come down to two things. On the one hand, we do need much better information on the sort of processes that are going on, the design standards, the risk assessment, whether some of these things that Om is talking about are in place in schools, which will give us a signal of the likelihood of that school being climate resilient. But really, the children and the teachers and the parents, they don't care whether you've done a risk assessment.
No.
They want to know whether the services are working and whether the kids are getting an education. So you need to couple that with information on the actual service levels and the kids' experience and whether or not they are able to learn effectively. So those two things. One thing that I just want to add is that I think where that works is where you get not just education and WASH working together, but where you get the health sector coming in behind and agreeing on this common set of priorities, which are important for all three sectors. And that's where things really start to move. So, for example, working at the moment on trying to get information on water quality in schools in Panama. Technically, it's a big challenge. And it's something that the education sector wants, but the education sector can't do it. So they need support on the technical side from the WASH sector to figure out how to do it. But in terms of where and how that data is going to be used, it's actually primarily going to be used by the health sector.
Yeah.
So it's getting all of those stakeholders together and agreeing on how this can be done routinely at scale and will allow us to give a signal of whether or not all of these other great interventions that are going on are actually making a difference in terms of the drinking water quality in the schools on the ground. Does that make sense?
Makes great sense. So back to everybody here. I'm just wondering, so hands up, how many feel, back to the question that I asked earlier, how many feel that climate resilience WASH in schools is same, but just doing it a little bit better? Show of hands. No hands. Dieter, half hands. Okay. How many think we need a transformative change? So the majority think we need a transformative change. We have probably a minute or so for a question before I bring Kitka back on. Anybody have a question they want to, or a reflection? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, for the nice presentation. Microphone. I thought that.
Yeah, you go ahead, say the question and the microphone will come to you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am called Wendy. I'm from Samaritan's First, a Global WASH Technical Advisor and based in Nairobi. Thank you very much for the nice presentation, everyone, and this is very clear and allude.
Quick question?
My question is just a follow-up from Tom about the functionality and the service. And as implementer, a very common thing that we have, from the effort that we are doing WASH in a school, that we have the infrastructure and we keep doing the same thing and trying to do to cover the need in the school. But my question for everyone, it depends on the context, but like we have the service like where roof water harvesting mechanisms and also pit latrine
Yes,
and water points. My question is on sustainability because we are, for instance, for the latrine cases when we do a pit latrine and especially in the rural setup. Sorry, taking long.
Yeah, but okay, we need to get to the question
yes,
because, So your
because
question is on monitoring the usability?
No, on the sustainability.
Sustainability. So
And
indicators for sustainability?
And on the design, because like, for instance, so pit latrine.
Okay. Okay. So Tom, do you want to say anything on sustainability? How indicators are around sustainability? If you can. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, we could have a whole another session.
Oh yeah,
on,
no.
On sustainability.
Yeah, this is like an elevator pitch on sustainability challenges.
But I do want to bring it back because I think several people have said this. So we can put up all of these different terms: climate resilience, sustainability, inclusivity. You know, there are lots of buzzwords which are important.
Right.
And it's not an either or. It's all of those things, and we need to think about how they come together into a cohesive agenda on where we want to go with Washington schools. And so we shouldn't set these up in opposition. Clearly, sustainability and climate resilience are very closely related. There are lots of similarities, but we need to think about what are the additional things that we need to address climate resilience that perhaps we hadn't thought about so much in the discussion that we've been having for the last 25 years about sustainability. Yeah. So let's try and bring those things together rather than further fragmenting the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. So even if I haven't got it, I'll let you connect with Tom to get the question very clearly, because I want to first now, because I'm giving time now, I want to thank all the panelists and also those excellent inputs, giving us really what are possible scalable and interventions on the ground, and wishing you guys all continued good luck. So thank you very much, and thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
So please make sure that question goes back if I haven't got quite, it's only because I'm being timed now. So I want to bring Kitka back on. Kitka, I want you to kind of close us this and help us close this session with the big overarching question. If we're looking ahead, again, getting down to it, what is the single most important priority or action that stakeholders, all of us here, should be focusing on to scale up climate resilient wash services in schools?
One word. It's all about collaboration. It's all about partnerships. And I think if there's one common theme that has come out through all of the presenters and some of the films we saw, it's the need to collaborate. It's the need for us to work in a joined-up manner. And so first is to really thank the WinS partnership, because again, they are demonstrating the coming together of partners to do this. We need collaboration across other sectors: education, water, energy, and health. Our interventions have to be based on evidence. We need the information that is based on what is happening in the immediate vicinity of those schools, so that then we can really target them. Those interventions also have to be socially driven, because we need the behavior component that goes along with that. I think the question that all of us are going to be dealing with is, what is the additionality we are bringing to what we have been doing? This additionality is what is going to address that risk, that climate-related risks that we are now witnessing in the schools. And at the end of the day, the question we have to ask and answer for ourselves is related to, are the services working? Are they functional? Are they able to withstand any level of shock that they are exposed to as a result of climate? And if we are able to do that, then I think we are on course to provide climate resilient services.
Thank you, Kitka. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, everybody. So I guess I close the session with, again, hands again. So final question, raise your hand if after this session you expect to change a little bit of what you do in terms of Washington schools in your own work. Some? I do anyway. Anyway, thank you all for participating, raising your hands. Thank you for the good questions. I wish we had more time to have more of a dialogue. Tigist in Addis Ababa, Namasanganalo, thank you very much. And to all the presenters, starting with Sandra, Dr. Chris, Tom, and KitKat, thank you all very, very much. And have a great day. Thanks. And Dieter, of course. Thank you.